Okay, if you've been hearing all the buzz about Obsidian and how it works to build your quote second brain or your AI operating system, and you think it sounds cool, but people have made it feel a little bit complicated and you're not sure you want to dive in, I want to break it down for you, the solo expert who can use Markdown, Obsidian, and Claude so simply. Those three things together are like a great peanut butter and jelly on wheat bread, okay? So the first thing I want to say is, hi, if you don't know me, I'm Wendy, and I've helped thousands of solo experts build marketing and sales and business systems using AI-powered structures in an uncomplicated way. Everybody makes everything so complicated, right? I want to make this uncomplicated. And Obsidian and Markdown is the most uncomplicated thing, and I want to prove it to you in this video. So by the end of this, you are going to know if you want to use Obsidian, you're going to feel confident in how it works and how it, quote, connects or doesn't really connect to Claude, and why it's so great when we think about Markdown. You're going to understand Markdown, you're going to understand it's not complicated, it's not code, and you are going to want to set up your Obsidian account. So like a lot of the AI internet influencer gurus do, they make something very simple overly complex, and they make it feel elaborate. So I want to try to narrow this down for you as basic as possible. And the first thing I want to explain to you is Markdown. And Markdown, or Markdown language, Markdown formatting, is something that you are already very familiar with. It is literally just some punctuation using a hashtag or an asterisk in front of words and sentences that you want to stand out from the rest of the content. And typically when you are working with a large language model like Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever you're using, you want to use as much text-based content and formatting when you're giving it information and feeding it large chunks of information as possible, because the language model can read text very, very quickly. So I'll give you a quick example. If you give a large language model a 30-page PDF, it might look beautiful to you, but behind the scenes, there's a ton of PDF coding and this and that and large images and unformatted, unreadable content by the language model. And so it's going to take it longer. But if you just strip out the content from your beautiful PDF and you give that to the large language model, it's going to read it in milliseconds and it's going to know exactly what to do. And you know, we're all pretty dang spoiled about how things are so fast. And so when things aren't fast with AI, we wonder, why is it taking so long? And one of the reasons is because we're not using Markdown files or text files enough. And so again, Markdown is just text. I want you to think of Markdown like you think of punctuation. It is not code. It is not codey, right? It's not like something that you need to go become a prompt engineer to do or anything like that. It's just a series of hashtags and asterisks basically at the basis. And this is really all you need. Now, I want to give you a hot tip here, and that is right now you can see that I'm in a Google Doc. And over here on the side, you see this pretty little outline. And the reason this has an outline is because I've used this little drop down here and I've chosen different headings. So there's a heading 1, a heading 2. Now, I can format these in the Google Doc and make them look pretty. But at the heart of it, the reason these are showing up over here is because when I go to types of formatting structure, it's popping up over here because it is a headline 1. You can see it right here. It's an H1. So we think of H1s, H2s, and H3s. And if you've ever built a website, you know that you structure your content or a blog that way too, so that it reads what's most important. And H1, one hashtag, is the most important. H2 is the subtitle, the subheading, the second most important, and H3 is a third most important thing, right? That's all it is one hashtag, 2 hashtags, or 3 hashtags. Now, you can take it a step further and you can use asterisks. And if you wrap a sentence or a word with 2 asterisks before it and 2 asterisks after in a text document, that's just going to make it bold. So think of Markdown not as something that's like complicated or codey. Just think about it as another new piece of punctuation. Okay. And when you were looking at that in a text file, let me show you what I mean. It looks like this in a text file. So you can see here that there's a little, it's probably very small for you, but there's one hashtag. So this is a heading that it's going to read. Who I am has 2 hashtags, meaning it's second, but every time there's a main section, you can see there's 2 hashtags in front of it. It's because I want, when I give this to any of the large language models, when I feed this into Claude, I want it to say like, oh, here's the start of a new section. Oh, this is important. And by the way, this is my Claude.md file. Now, we're looking at it in a text editor, but this is going to get really exciting in just a minute when we talk about Obsidian. So again, this is in text. This is what Markdown looks like in text. Asterisks, hashtags, wrapped around words. So you can see here that I've got 2 little asterisks right here for primary 𝗖𝗢𝗧'𝗦, and then it ends. It's because not only is this a headline 3, and I want it to stand out as such under my audience section, I also want it to be bold, okay? The other thing you can do to let a large language model know that you are serious about something and you want it to pay attention is use all caps. So if something is important, but doesn't need to have a hashtags in front of it, you could do 2 asterisks, all caps, 2 asterisks. And that means it's bold and it's caps. And then it's going to be like, oh, she wants me to make sure that I understand that this is a little bit more important. So this is not an awesome way to read copy, right? We all agree, right? We'd much rather read copy when it looks like this over in a Google Doc and we have it looking pretty and there's, highlights and big words and, all that good stuff. This is where Obsidian comes in. And this is a really important differentiation. So when I download this, I have some different options. I can download it as a Microsoft document, which is better than a PDF. I can download it as a plain text, or I can download it as a .md file. And anytime you are downloading anything and you with the intent to give it to Claude or ChatGPT, you want to use the .md if possible. Okay, if not, use text, but the .md is going to be the best and the easiest. And, everything is like design.md, Claude.md, agents.md, right? That is what these language models are really striving for, is they want MD files to read because it's very fast for them to parse and understand the information, okay? So if you don't use any Markdown, it's just going to be one big long wall of text for it, and it has to do deciding what is the most important thing. When you use Markdown, like your text file here, you've told it what the most important thing is. So now that we have an overview of Markdown and how simple it truly is and how it really is just like punctuation, just like you use a period or a comma so you don't have one long run-ass sentence, right? You're going to use these hashtags when you want to denote sections. This is where Obsidian comes in. So a lot of people have been connecting a lot of different apps to their Claude or to their ChatGPT account. And through the MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, it's basically like the plug that you can plug anything into an AI model. It's expanded our ability to use our tools in conjunction with Claude or with ChatGPT. So maybe you've connected like your Notion, your Airtable, your Google Drive, your HubSpot, everything you've connected, right? We have the ability to make all of these connections, and it's great. And there's also limitations because anything that you can connect can also from time to time become unconnected, and that is a pain in the butt. The other thing too is that even though it is a direct connection between your large language model and the app, there still is data that's going back and forth. So there still is going to be a little bit of time that it takes because it's basically the MCP is the API connection basically. So a couple of months ago, 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦 said, you can just use Obsidian to connect directly without an MCP to Claude. And so everybody's like, great, how do I do it? And I want to show you that. It is free. You can start a free account, and you're going to want to after this, but it can be very, very complicated. So I want to show you how it's not complicated and how you can use it for your purposes. So let me start by quickly showing you in Claude how this kind of plays out, how this plays through, how Claude plus Markdown plus Obsidian is like the perfect situation. So you can see over here that I have a structure. Now, a lot of people have created very elaborate like second brains and AI operating systems. And my AI operating system that I teach is called Scale Without Hiring OS. It's a set of directors that run your business. Okay, so instead of me creating some elaborate operating system, I create everything in the same structure as how I have it created in my Claude. So when people start to say to you, or when you start working in Claude Cowork, for instance, or you want to be able to find what you're looking for easily to connect it to a chat, I recommend that you create your folder structure in your local drive the same way that you create your folder structure, your project structure in your large language model. So for instance, I have a folder in my Dropbox called Director of Marketing, Director of Sales, Client Success, Curriculum, and they match up because consistency makes things easy, right? If you want to overcomplicate something and make something like crazy and overwhelming, just give it different names in every single place and you've like covered it. Make everything the same. You don't need to create some crazy big AI second brain. A second brain, all that is a folder structure to store information. Okay, it's not complicated. So let's say I decide that I want to make a new document and I know that I want to connect a file to it. So if I click this, you can see here it says I can add a file. Now let's see what happens when I do this. On my local drive, which is actually Dropbox, and I use Dropbox because I can see the same folders, the same files locally here on this computer as I can on my laptop, and I think that that's important. I don't want to store files locally on this one computer. I want to store things in the cloud and see them locally on my computer. So I've used Dropbox forever and a day. Now you can see here that I have a folder called Claude plus Obsidian. Okay, this folder right here we're looking in right now. So you can see here that I have a marketing, I have a sales, I have operations, I've got money finance, I've got other folders too, Claude Code, and I've also got markdowns, one of which is this claude.md file. So we were looking at that claude.md file right here. This is the file that is also this file. But now I can look at it a different way and edit it when I use Obsidian. And this is where Obsidian comes into play. And that is, let's go to my Obsidian. This is Obsidian. And I don't have another set of these documents in Obsidian like I would have to do if I'm using Google Drive. Okay, so think about this. My claude.md is sitting in my Dropbox as a .md file. If I wanted to have it on Google Drive, I would have to upload it and it would be a different iteration because it's living on Google Drive. And that's where people I think get confused about Obsidian, is because when I'm looking here at Obsidian, all of these files are not in some Obsidian cloud. All of these files are reading from my local drive. So basically what's happening is Obsidian is not connected to Claude. Obsidian is connected, you can see right here it says Claude plus Obsidian. This workspace is connected to this folder. Okay, so anything you see here in Claude plus Obsidian is also exactly what I see here. It's the same files. And that is why Obsidian is so amazing, because what this basically is an editor for my Markdown files, and it looks pretty. So you can see here, look, if I click on this, you can see it's got those two hashtags. This is an H2, and it's got the little asterisks around it. So not only is it an H2, it's also bold. Obsidian is a Markdown reader, and that is it. You can do a lot of other things. They've added other features. There's 50,000 plugins that you can do, but at the heart of it, it is giving you a way to read your Markdown files, edit your Markdown files, and not have to update a document in 5,000 places, right? I don't have to go over to Google Drive now and re-upload it if I make an update to this, right? Because if I said, "Hi, I'm Wendy Breakstone Ladd," for instance, right, which is my married last name, this automatically just updated this file right here. So you can see here, now it says, "Hi, I'm Wendy Breakstone Ladd." So it's all connected. And what's happening is that people don't understand how Obsidian isn't actually connected to Claude. Obsidian is connected to the folder, and Claude is connected to the folder. Okay? So the folder is the source of truth. It's not Obsidian. It's not Google Drive. It's the documentation in the folder. And that's what makes this so valuable. So unlike saving everything in Notion, when you're on the Notion cloud, and if you if Notion goes away, your content goes away, right? You can download stuff from Notion and then you can save it locally or whatever, right? Just like you can download from Google and save it locally. But at the heart of it, when I update this local document through Obsidian and I have my Claude connected to this local document, I've only had to do it one time. And that is why it's so, so valuable. So when people say, "How do I connect Claude to Obsidian?" You actually don't connect Claude to Obsidian. You connect Claude, especially in in co-work, you connect Claude to a folder. And that folder just happens to be the same folder as Obsidian. So now you know you've got Markdown, which is just some punctuation that you need to remember. It's not a big deal. You've got one source of truth, the files on your computer, right? I know a lot of people are using Google Drive. That's fine. You can do the connections and stuff. But again, the connection's going to slow things down. Connections, get unconnected. Things happen, right? But the goal is that when I'm in co-work or another folder, or I want to make sure that I am pulling the right Claude.md or the right brand document, brand.md file, that I am always pulling it from this one folder that everything is using. So I hope this video has done 3 things for you. Number 1, that it's made you realize that using Markdown language is not complicated. It's just a few hashtags, right? Secondly, remember to use .md, those Markdown files, whenever possible. They allow the large language model to quickly parse, read, and determine what your document says, and that's going to be the quickest for the language models. That you can download .md files from your Google Docs, from your Google Drives, and that whenever possible, if you are using Google, to use the headlines, the headers, the heading 1s, headings 2, so that when you do download it, it's got that structure in place for you. Number 3 is make sure that your local files or your Dropbox files, whatever your file structure is that you call your quote AI operating system or second brain, that it matches what you're doing in Claude, right? I always teach the 7 directors because it's very, very simple, and 7 is a number that you can remember. You go any farther than that and you can't remember them. And then so I organize all of my information in my local files to mimic that structure so that everything is consistent. And then finally, using Obsidian, number 1, it's free. You can go and create an account today, and then you just connect your Obsidian account to that local master folder that has all the subfolders and all of your MD files in it. And that way you've got one source of truth that you can use in your Claude, in your ChatGPT. You can easily edit it in Obsidian, and it's going to update everywhere else. Okay, friends, if you have any questions, let me know. If you want me to make a video on a couple of the little plugins that I use in Obsidian just to set up my space and to make it kind of customized for me, let me know. I've watched literally dozens of videos on plugins, and I have figured out the ones that I think are the best for solo experts that are going to enhance the experience of using Obsidian without making it overly complicated. All right, I hope that you found value in this. If you did, please feel free to give me a subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.